each of you have got particular areas that you want to focus on. Can you give us the top 1, 2, or 3 areas that you would like to focus on, or things that you want to be in order to do something for our state, for our communities?
Absolutely. The number one priority for me is addressing loopholes in the law that allow assignment of benefits to drive our insurance rates up. I don't know if you all are familiar with the issue of assignment of benefits, but it's been going on for 5 or 6 years now. You know, here in Florida, everyone in Florida used to be dying from mold. Do you remember everyone was dying from mold? There were hundreds of lawsuits, actually thousands of lawsuits, people dying from mold. The legislature got together and they put a cap on attorney's fees. And it was a miracle. People stopped dying from mold. Then every home in Florida had sinkholes under it. We paid hundreds of millions of dollars out. You know who pays for that? We do in our insurance rates. We paid hundreds of millions of dollars out and these homes weren't even getting fixed. Finally, the legislature went and and I was part of that process, not as a legislator, but as a insurance company member. We went up there and finally changed the law to close that loophole. The trouble is, in Florida, on this assignment benefit problem, we have 20 law firms. 11 of them are doing the majority of it. That's it. Of all the attorneys in Florida, all the good attorneys we have, you got 20 law firms, 11 of them doing the most damage. They're costing every homeowner in Florida between $150 and $550 more a year on your insurance premium. Needlessly. And the legislature hasn't done anything about it. You know, last 2 years, the governor was behind fixing it. The Office of Insurance Regulation was behind fixing it. Citizens Insurance Company, the company we all own, has been hurt the most on this. They wanted it fixed. But there's a certain group up in Tallahassee that I like to say are Republicans that are wolves in sheep clothing. It's called the trial bar. And they're up there in the back rooms and they're convincing other legislators up there not to do the right thing. If elected, I'll be the only insurance company executive up there to balance off the trial bar. So that's my number one priority.
Yeah.
Well, Ray, I'm not sure if that was accidental, but I think you accidentally pointed to me when you said there's some good attorneys out there.
I did.
So I think Ray and I share, and I certainly wouldn't disagree that that's a huge priority. My focus is more on healthcare. That's before I went to law school. I did healthcare policy for Congressman Gus Belrakis in D.C. And his big issue at that time was fighting to protect the Medicare dollars. And now we've seen over the past 10 years, healthcare is just exploding as a part of our budget. Soon it's going to be a third of every dollar that we spend in America. So when we're talking about, of course, insurance, it's coming out of everybody's pockets, whether it's home insurance, car insurance, even commercial insurance. But the same thing with healthcare. The more that we're spending on hospitals, the more that we're spending to get the care that we need and the care that people deserve, the more that we have uncompensated care, and the more that's coming out of our own pockets and increasing in tax revenue. So healthcare is my issue. I want to make sure that every Floridian has the opportunity to access quality, affordable healthcare, but we certainly don't have to go down the Obamacare failed healthcare route, which all that it's done is made healthcare more expensive in Florida.
Hi, I'm John Spagnola. I'm a citizen in Pinellas Park. We know Ray's resume. He has an excellent resume. He's served on city council, and we can see why he wants to go to Tallahassee and fight for us. Where do you get your criteria of how you can represent my city? We see Ray's background, and I don't speak for all of citizens in Pinellas Park, but for most of us, we like somebody who has experience. Tell me, why are you deciding to run for House District 69 against somebody like Ray, who has a great resume?
Question, please.
Okay. But what can you know what I mean?
Sure. So
Yeah.
I'll give you my background.
Sure.
So I'm a first-generation American. My parents, my dad and grandparents immigrated here legally, and they waited in line, did it the right way. And so when you talk about illegal immigration, it's close to home. It's personal for me. My parents had to go through that whole ordeal. Born and raised here in Florida. Like I mentioned before, I started off in the policy side of things, and the experience in government, working for Gus Belrakis, who I'm sure for all those of you who attend the REC meetings, he's a rock solid conservative. He's one of the few up there supporting President Trump. and doing what's right for Pinellas County, regardless of whatever the media or the Tampa Bay Times says. After I worked for Congressman Gus Balarakis, I went to law school and started practicing as an attorney in the area. And my firm's been here for decades. We represent a number of small businesses, municipalities, people like that here in the community. And it's really given me an incredible opportunity to sit down with folks from all varieties of sectors. We represent insurance companies, but we also work with small mom and pop restaurants on the beach and hotels and trucking companies and all the things that make Pinellas County just such a great place for people to come and visit and stay and live and retire. So I think my experience of working one-on-one with folks and understanding what their challenges are, what makes it hard for people to start up or grow their business or hire more folks, that's the experience I want to take to Tallahassee, because big businesses have their lobbyists. They have the people that are going to speak for them. What we're missing is the voice of the small businesses, the people that don't have a seat with the big, powerful lobbyists. So that's what I want to bring to Tallahassee.
So I have a long life experience and a lot of knowledge, hitting a lot of different areas. And what was asked earlier about all the complex issues up in Tallahassee, that's usually what the freshman legislators up there discover, is how complex everything is, from mental health, healthcare, schools, the penal system we have, judiciary. There's a lot of very complex issues that a legislature has to try to get a handle on. It's very difficult to. I'm pretty fortunate. I helped rewrite the Tennessee Workers' Comp Law. Took 2 years to do that. When our mayor from Seminole was state representative, she helped redo the Florida Workers' Comp Law. And the Florida Hurricane Catastrophe Fund law, which is our state reinsurance fund that we kept the insurance companies here in Florida with. I helped draft that. It was a bill about this thick. We passed that several years after the initial Florida Hurricane Cat Fund bill was passed to bail out the big insurance companies. And the second modification allowed growth for new companies to come here because we knew that the big companies had left Florida. I also dealt a lot following the federal flood program, dealing with Congressman Dennis Ross and trying to get us more choices. I was over at Tampa the other last week, I think it was, when the president came and he signed the extension of the Perkins Vocational Education Act. So I've been following education. I served 4 years on a school board. So I had some experience there. So I guess the reason I wanted you all to vote for me is I can go up there and use my experience, my knowledge, my maturity to represent you the best I can. No one knows all the answers. You really don't. Doesn't matter who goes up there. I think I've got a head start on most of the other people up there and have a better understanding of the process, the people, and vote for me.
I'm a fisherman, and of late, we've seen everything, you say don't blame it on the cities. I was biting my lip here. But that said, it's now a statewide problem. I'm on a website, on a Facebook site that has pictures coming from all up and down this coast. What is the reason and what is the solution to fix it? Because it is ugly what's happening from just south of Sarasota down to Venice, south of Venice maybe to Fort Myers, Boca Grande. Thousands of fish, huge fish, manatee, turtles are washing up there.
So red tide, unfortunately, comes from offshore. So I know the scientists are studying it and trying to figure out why the blooms come in from offshore. If it was coming from around our municipalities or in the intercoastal, I could understand that how we have impacted it. But there's several issues there, and it's a very complex thing. I don't think we can blame the cities for that, but I don't know. So scientists are currently studying it. We also have that other problem down there, the green algae.
Yeah.
We have Lake Okeechobee that the Army Corps of Engineers releases the water that goes through the system, and it's all green muck down there, and I'm sure that's on your websites too. So I'm very concerned. I enjoy utilizing the intercoastal and the Gulf. I have a boat. I enjoy going up and down, and we don't like smelling that yucky smell, the red tide coming in and the dead fish. And it's horrible to see manatee and dolphins die. I mean, that's one of the greatest pleasures I have living here in Florida, is going out on my dock and watching the dolphins, play around back there. So I will do my best to find out what's going on in that and work with the federal government, state government, and whoever we can to find a solution to it or find the cause of it. Thank you.
And I would just to echo that, we live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. I mean, people spend thousands of dollars to come vacation where we live, and so one of the things that Tallahassee needs to focus on, more directly to your question, sir, is we need to protect our resources. We need to protect what is also a driver of our economy. I mean, we have great restaurants, but people from Minnesota don't come out down here in the wintertime for our great restaurants, right? They come down here for the beautiful area that we live in. So the three things that Ray addressed are certainly three of the biggest problems. We've got the red tide that comes in from offshore. We've got the Everglades project that over time, with the redistribution of how the water has been taken off from Okeechobee, it's affected that area. And certainly the state of Florida has stepped up recently to address that, and there's been funds coming from DC to do that. But we need to fully and completely implement those restoration plans to make sure that we protect our coast and we don't continue to have this problem. So of course the natural piece, the algae piece, but then the cities, and again, Mayor Waters, not your city, but in the city of St. Pete, we've had a terrible problem with sewage dumping, and that is something that the state needs to step in and say that's a problem that shouldn't happen, and it's got to be stopped and then fixed. So there's really kind of three big pieces to correcting all of the issues with our water system that prevent and hinder the beautiful natural resources that we get to call home.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Jerry Todd. I'm new here. I'm a former Randall County Public Executive Committee Vice Chair, Treasurer, first Randall Republic President.
But you live in St. Pete now?
Yes, I do.
All right, sign him up.
As the shirt says, I'm the world's most cool kid. I've been in the service first. And in the years that I was involved with the REC, we had talked to a lot of candidates. One of them, we were going to run against. This man swore to us that he would be a conservative, how much value he held as a conservative. I've been a conservative since birth. I don't like candidates who change their political party to become a politician. I'd like to know a couple of things. How long have you been Republican? I'm not done yet. How long have you been Republican? Have you worked with the Republican Party? And the most important question, I also ran for office, is if you lose, will we still see you working for the party? Because if not, you're just doing this for yourself.
So I've been a Republican ever since I registered. I've never been anything but a registered Republican. My political experience, of course, I talked about Gus, but even before that, I've been knocking on doors for Rick Scott the first time that he ran. I was actually a part of the Tampa Young Republican where he launched his campaign. Before that, knocked on doors for almost every Republican state legislator that we have here in Pinellas County, and working hard, doing the not fun work, the standing outside in the heat, the waving the signs, it may surprise you, but this is one of the fun parts of campaigning, right? And I need to talk to people who care about our community, who care, and they show up and they just want to make a difference. The hard part is knocking on doors, getting some doors slammed in your face, or just staying out there and waving the signs and getting honked at. But to answer your question, or the second question, and Ray and I actually talked about this outside as well. No matter who wins, we're Team Republican, and we want to make sure that there's a Republican that continues to stay in this seat, and that we continue to hold the House of Representatives, that we keep the Senate, and that we put a Republican in the governor's mansion. So I'm committed, and I know Ray, when we spoke outside before, said he's committed as well. So I'm Team Republican.
I became a Republican in 1978. Back when Ronald Reagan was running, I wrote several papers on Reaganomics. I became the College Council Republican president at Southern Illinois University. I eventually ran in Illinois to become a precinct committee person. You run, it's an election. I ran and was elected as a Republican precinct committeeman and served for 12 years. I worked on Dennis Hastert campaign and many state and local elections up there. I worked on Newt Gingrich's campaign. When I moved to Georgia, I've been the only time since 1978 that I left our beloved party was when Charlie Crist was our governor, and he upset me so much that I left the party for 2 years and then came back after he left. So I'm from DuPage County, Illinois, West Chicago. DuPage County is the Republican bastion that offset Cook County until after I left, and then they fell and the state went Democrat. But I've been here since 1996. I was actually McCullen. I met with him and didn't like what he said, so I met with Rick Scott 2 weeks before the first primary he was running in, because I wanted to see what the story was, and he enthralled me. He reminded me so much. He blue-collar background, hard worker. He went to the Navy to get his education. He was an attorney. He has a law degree, and he started his business. I know I signed both the front and back of paychecks. We have about 180 employees here in this district in my company. So anyway, that's my story, and don't believe everything you hear.
Another question, please.
Stand your ground is in the news again. What are we going to do? Eliminate it, keep it, protect it? Are we going to go back to the legislature? Are we going to have a special session, spend more money? How do you say? What do you think?
Well, I absolutely disagree with the special session. We don't need one. I fully support the stand your ground and what it does to make sure that innocent people don't suffer all the negative repercussions of going through this entire finance-draining criminal process just in order to prove themselves innocent, which they now are able to do at the beginning. What I will say about that is I'm certainly not standing up here saying I'm a criminal law expert. I do, like Ray, we work in insurance, we do civil work. I'd be happy to sit down with you if you want to discuss this and talk more to the details about what tweaks around the edges we can do to fix any issues that have come up and work with the prosecutors. I'm proud to have the endorsement of Sheriff Galtieri and the work that he does to keep our community safe. I've been AQ rated by the NRA. I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, and I think that we need to keep all of the aspects of the Second Amendment in the forefront of our minds when we're talking about this legislation. I'm not sure if any of you know this, but the NRA recently came out with a package called Carry Guard, kind of insurance to deal with in case anything happens. So most people don't realize that even if you go through the entire criminal process and you're found innocent, you can be drained of all of the financial resources that you had. So it's important to keep that in mind. So I'm not saying our system is perfect and beyond any questioning, but I do think that we need to absolutely support individuals' right to carry and make sure that they're protected throughout the entire process.
I believe the stand your own ground law should be left the way it is. It's protecting the people who are protecting themselves and their families. If you take away those rights, you're making it much more difficult to protect families. I'm a life member of the NRA, and while I understand some of the arguments that people say, Second Amendment rights aren't things that we need to be talking about when there's a crisis that happens, like we had the shooting at the schools. You need to, if you spend all your time over here talking about Second Amendment rights, then you're wasting your time. You need to find out why these elementary schools for my grandchildren here are less secure than my office. Why is that? Those are the topics we should be concentrating on. So I believe they don't need a special session. Keep the law the way it is. Continue protecting our rights to carry our weapons when we need to.
Gentlemen, I have the opportunity to vote for Stand Your Ground. when I was in the legislature. Ray, you were up there. And it's called the castle doctrine. Stand your ground. Your home is your castle. Your office is your castle. Your car is your castle. Maybe the tweaking around the edges that was referred to possibly. I'm not quite sure it should apply on a street corner or in front of a 7-Eleven, which is what's brought it back, into the forefront. Castle doctrine. So maybe kind of review that. And yes, we should keep it, but maybe it's just been expanded a little bit too much. Just some input.
Doreen, you're.
Okay.
No, I thought you could.
Oh, no. I want to talk about the Marjorie Stoneman's school safety bill. They made 2 classes of 18-year-olds. 18-year-olds who could buy a rifle and 18-year-olds who were exempted from the law. They made 2 classes of people who had to wait 3 days in order to pick up the gun that they lawfully purchased. Those who could or had to wait 3 days, and those who were exempted from the law. If you go to what are you going to do about this? Because they really messed it up. And I'm very dissatisfied with all of them except Jamie Grant, who voted against it.
Well, I understand they were under a lot of pressure, but just because you're under a lot of pressure, you don't do the wrong things. This is a mental health problem. The report clearly shows there were dozens of red flags that should have been caught, and this kid should have been helped. So we need to concentrate our efforts on mental health, not on the gun, because it could have just as well been a motor vehicle. He could have pulled the fire alarm and ran people over with a motor vehicle, or he could have carried in explosives and blew it up, as they're coming out. It's a mental health program, and to think otherwise, you're getting distracted over here. You're never going to get to the actual problem and resolve it and protect our kids.
It's a people problem. It's not a gun problem. The rush to get something done, or in the rush to get something done, you don't always get the right result. That's why my dad always said, you measure twice, cut once, right? So that you take your time, do it thoughtfully, you get to the right answer. Justice Thomas, the Supreme Court Justice, always says that for some reason, the Second Amendment is always treated like a second-class amendment. In that whenever there's legislation going around to curtail the Second Amendment, if you took those same provisions and applied it to any other amendment, so like you're talking about with the 18 to 20-year-old provision, if we said that you have a First Amendment right, but not if you're under 21. We're gonna take away your First Amendment rights. If we did that with any other constitutional right, the right to jury, the right to counsel, it would be unthinkable. But for some reason, we've allowed the Second Amendment to become a sub-amendment in some regards, and that's not right. And so legislators, when they go to Tallahassee, they need to understand that they swear an oath. They'll uphold all the Constitution, including all of the amendments, whether they like it or not. It's a part of the oath. So, and that's what they're sworn to hold.
Thank you, gentlemen. One in the back.
Right, be back again. Also, former law enforcement. I have to agree with the mayor. And you gentlemen want to review this as you speak about stand your ground. If you look at that unedited video, the law states that your life is in peril. I'm an NRA member, I'm a carrier, and this is law enforcement. If I was a cop in that position and I shot that man, I would be sent to jail for unnecessary use of deadly force. Okay, so gentlemen, don't just say what you just said. Just wash it off. I'm not insulting. I'm trying to educate you. That man did not have to shoot. His life was not in peril. He was assaulted, and had the man lived, he would have been arrested for assault. But his life was not in peril. I would not have shot him. Okay, if a police officer had shot that man, he'd be in jail.
That's right.
So it's not a question.
Is there a
I'd like to form that in a question. Can you form a question, or do you have one?
Do you feel different now than what I just told you?
So, like I mentioned when the first time around, certainly there's tweaks that need to be made to make sure that the right decision is made. Like Mayor Waters said, this whole thing traces back to the common law castle doctrine that you're supposed to be safe in your home. That if someone tried to break into your home, you had the absolute right to defend, even if that meant taking that person's life. And certainly it was expanded upon and grown to include cars and things like that. But we absolutely need to make sure that it doesn't become a license for somebody to do something that's wrong. And Sheriff Galtieri, I don't know if you guys have seen his press conference, but he pretty clearly stated that he had to follow the law, and that if the law was different, of course he could add a different response. So to the extent that he's a lawyer, I mean certainly with most things in the law, people can make an argument for both sides, but certainly to the extent that there needs to be tweaks and needs to be changes to make sure that situations like that don't happen again, it needs to be done.
It's a fact situation there, and the law is the law, and people are interpreting how to apply that law. If you don't believe that his life was endangered, then that section of law should not apply to him. So you have to do it case by case. You need to look at it. It's not. I don't think it's the law's fault. I think that factual situation. I wasn't there. I saw the same video you did. I don't know all the circumstances that were involved there, but I'm always willing. I know I'm not perfect. I know I make mistakes. I'm always willing to listen to people, but as of right now, I don't think I would tweak it. I'd have to really go look at that.
Last one. Mental health is something that's close. Oh, okay. Mental health is something close to me. I work at Meade Union Hospital in mental health facility, and Kathleen Peters is very big on mental health and has helped St. Anthony's Hospital, where I previously worked in mental health. How would you continue that forefront, what she's already started as a State House representative?
Well, first of all, she's going to be a wonderful resource. She is very knowledgeable on mental health issues, and everyone here, I believe, knows her and knows how passionate she is on this topic. She was able to get several laws passed throughout her tenure as state representative, and we'll continue that fight. I don't want to speak for Jeremy, but I'm pretty sure that we will both continue that fight that she's doing to expand the mental health services and go to the root of the problem and make sure that people get the proper mental health assistance that they require, and to make sure that there's cooperation among agencies to prevent tragedies from happening. So yeah, I'm going to continue on the work that she started.
Excellent.
And I couldn't agree more. I mean, she's been a fantastic champion in that area. She's actually received a few awards for the work that she's done. Florida's 48th, and now I believe we're now at 49th in the nation in terms of state funding of mental health resources. And when we're that low, when we have that kind of lack of dedication to that problem, that's when we see the issues with mental health that are connected to the shootings. One of the things that Sheriff Galtieri talks about is, we have a people problem, and when there's a people problem, there's two places they go. They go to the ER, or they go to the sheriff's office. And we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars every year as taxpayers on making our jails and our prisons a mental health treatment center. That's certainly not what they're designed for. It's certainly costing us so exponentially more than it would if we dedicated the resources. And I think that's what Ray was talking about when he talked about championing mental health in the state of Florida and making sure that the resources and the beds are available. One of the things that many people don't know with mental health funding is that the state actually funds beds in hospitals, right? But the money doesn't follow the patient. The money goes to the hospitals, and then they become kind of an aggregate for patients to go there. One of the things that we need to do is to change that, so that if you've got a Tampa General Hospital treating, or a St. Pete General, or a East Countryside, that whoever is actually treating the patient, not who's getting paid to hold the bed, but who's actually treating the patient, gets paid. That way, hospitals have an incentive to bring those patients in and give them the care that they need.
He was next, and then I'll get you. Yeah, he had been holding his hand up for a minute. Yes,
Recreational marijuana
My first, I'm opposed to recreational marijuana. I think what we've seen in Colorado with that is an increase with a number of issues, whether it's homelessness, whether it's drug driving. I don't think that it's right for the state of Florida to go to recreational marijuana.
You know, my initial knee-jerk reaction when I initially thought about this was, you know, what harm does it do? I'm pretty libertarian, and whatever you do in your home, you know, I don't care what you do, just don't bother anyone else. But the studies have come out of Denver 10 years later now, after they've done it, on how Florida used to be a magnet because we had the pill mills here, and all those people came here from all over the nation to get their drugs. Those same people are now all going to Colorado, and there are areas of homeless people there, not because, you know, they can't find work or anything, but they're just there to enjoy the recreational drugs that they can buy there. So they panhandle. There's tent cities out there now. There are areas that you cannot take your family to because of the smell and the filth and the people there. So having looked at that research, I would say that I would be against recreational drugs, you know, legalizing it. Now, as far as in your home, you do whatever you want. I don't think the government should come in and do it, but, you know, I'm not going to tell you that.
The same as liquor.
Pardon?
You don't drink liquor in public, so why can't you just have the same law as liquor?
All right, this is your question, please.
And that's the question, why couldn't we have a law the same as the way we handle liquor? Alcohol. I mean, exactly the same way.
Thank you.
And again, my knee-jerk reaction initially was, you know, prohibition didn't work. Why are we doing this with drugs? Now, I'm a big proponent of using marijuana as a health aid and having it prescribed to people, because if that's something that can help people, it's just like any other drug. Why exclude it, you know, just because it's marijuana? You shouldn't. If it can help people and be prescribed by a doctor, you should be able to utilize it. Again, looking at the problem in Denver, it didn't make sense to me to do it. I felt the same way. Jeremy, can you go first?
Oh, you can go ahead.
I was just going to say something about that. I had a medical marijuana card. First of all, the difference between the recreational and the medical, if anyone doesn't know, I never smoked marijuana. I couldn't sleep at night. I went in there to get it for sleeping and anxiety. When you go in there for a medical, they know exactly what kind of weed they're going to give you. Oh, you have a sleeping problem? You got to take this, this, and this. Yep. When you go smoking for recreational, you're buying it off the street, you just smoke anything, it can tweak your brain in a different way. That's why it shouldn't be recreational, and that's why they're fighting for it, about that issue. I mean, that's the problem. And kids get it, and they get it off the street, and they smoke whatever.
Time's up. Sorry. Thank you, gentlemen. We can take this up on another day.
Okay, Kathy, you had a question.
Yes.
Stand up, please.
Getting back to mental health again. Now I'm taking it from a different perspective. Yes, some of mental health is medical, but some is spiritual. And I see a lot of it spiritual. I want to know, what would you do to bring God back into schools? Because God has been just taken out of everything. And all I know is that when I was younger and we had schools that said the Pledge of Allegiance and somebody actually read Psalms, which, I mean, that's really, we hear about that anymore. What would you do to start bringing God back into Florida and into the schools again? Because I think a lot of the mental health is also spiritual.
So,
Big concern of mine.
are you ready? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, as a believer, I completely agree that the conditions that we're dealing with in this world are often, they're heart conditions, you know, and I've accepted Christ as my Savior. I'm a Christian. My wife and I attend First Baptist Church, and we've seen the impact, both in our families and our friends, of people who come to Christ and their lives are changed. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I talk with my hand and it just goes.
A lawyer in you.
Yeah.
But Irishness.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court back in the 60s, an incredibly liberal Supreme Court, did much to erode that and try to quite literally remove every reference of God out of our society. I think the state of Florida has taken a big step this past year, although it may seem small, but to make every school put "In God We Trust" in a prominent place back in our schools. I mean, it's on our license plate, it's on our money, but to take that step, I think it might be largely symbolic, but it shows that there's momentum. The people of Florida appreciate the fact that we were founded on Judeo-Christian values. We have "In God We Trust" on our money because He is the ultimate source of our strength. And I think as we continue to have options to move towards that, and I think with Donald Trump and President Trump's next nomination to the Supreme Court, having a conservative Supreme Court for the first time in decades, I mean, it's exciting to be a part of that and have the opportunity to see steps being taken in that regard.
I would have to agree with you. I mean, I believe some of the shootings that we have in schools today are caused, but I'm a Christian, I'm Roman Catholic, I pray every single day, and I try to live my life as Jesus taught us. But I'm also tolerant of other religions. So I don't believe that you should cut out Christianity from schools. I believe you need to have a moment of silence where they can pray. And it doesn't have to be to Jesus. It's a time of reflection for them. Whatever brings those people closer to God helps. And I think that would solve a lot of, I agree with you, I think that would go very far. So we often say, why do these students, people shoot each other now? We used to have, the guns out in your car. No one would get in a fight and go out and get their gun and come back and shoot anyone. We had, buck knives on our belts. Got the tar beat out of you, but you never pulled out the knife. It was ridiculous. Why was that? Because we had different philosophy back then. In schools, part of my, idea about schools is we need more choice. We're often told that you can tell if the school's good or bad by its principal, and that's where it begins with. It's not always money. Find a good principal and that who works with and cares about the students and the teachers, and you'll have a good school. So the more opportunity we give people, I think the better, and we will definitely follow along those lines and see what we can do. Thank you.
I want to thank you all. We're going to wrap this up. You have one question?
Yeah.
Okay, not a statement, a question. This will be the last question, then we'll wrap it up.
This is a long question, so I was writing it down. Basically, I come from a Democratic family. I come from up north. I was basically disowned from my family because of my beliefs, conservative beliefs. That's how strong I am in these beliefs. My mom doesn't speak to me that much. My parents and everything. I'm down here with my son and my wife. My wife is an immigrant from Guatemala. As far as immigration, I know exactly what's going on with immigration. I've been down to Guatemala. I know MS-13. I've talked to people. They don't even know what MS-13 is. They don't know about immigration. Especially the Democrats fighting them, they feel sorry for these people. Yeah, it's bad down there, but there's education down there, there's churches, they actually have food. The question is, how are we going to, as far as the Democrats are concerned, both of you have to run against the Democrat. How are you going to get across that education? People are weak. The teachers are weak. The parents are weak. You said the principal. That's because the principal goes in there. He's a lion. He or she is a lion. They say, enough. We're not going to have kids fighting in the hallway, doing drugs and everything else. How are you going to defeat the Democrat and prove to them about that? And then illegal immigration, the same thing. You can't just have feeling sorry for people, and then you have drug dealers and murderers. Not all of them. I'm married to an immigrant. But how are you going to defeat that?
Okay. I guess there's a couple pieces to that. Back in 1987, we passed the Immigration Reform Act. And at that point, the reason we passed that is to allow all the illegal immigrants in the United States to have an opportunity to apply for citizenship, and then we put laws against our employers to hold them responsible for we wouldn't have any more illegal immigration. We got quite a few citizens out there. It's supposed to be a clean slate. Well, unfortunately, like you know, when the other party is in control of the, United States, Senate, President, or whichever, the House up there, they take away, there was Border Patrol agents who said, we're just told to let them go right through. I can't even do my job anymore. So to do that, you need to maintain the Republican majority. I don't know if most of you remember this. This state used to be a Democratic House, a Democratic Senate, and every cabinet member was Democrat. The difference is they were conservative Democrats. They were fiscally conservative, and they were Christians, and they believed in their beliefs, and they believed that's how the state should be ran. What happened was that then Democrats in the southeast part of the state took over the Democratic Party and took them all the way over to the left liberal side. So we got to make sure that doesn't happen in our party. That's right. We need to stay firm and get people in there that are going to uphold our beliefs and our conservatism. As I go door to door, and I love going door to door, the strongest people, supporters of the Republican Party, are immigrants from socialist and communist nations who said, we grew up with this stuff. We know what progressivism is. We don't want that. And they're very firm believers, and they support Donald Trump, and they know that we can uphold that. So how do you in a district like this, how do you beat them? You just go straight at them. We have to educate them. Yeah. Because there is a real problem if you just have open borders. Ask them to leave their house open and let anyone come in their house. I mean, we're just going to have to battle it out with Jennifer. Woo!
So like I mentioned when we first started off, I'm a first-generation American. My dad went through that process, and it's personal. You see the struggle that they had because they wanted to achieve the American dream, and they wanted to take part in what makes America so great. And that it's hard work, it's sacrifice. But like we were saying, when you go door to door and you talk to folks, when you talk about communicating your message to, we have kind of an evenly split district. There's a little more Republicans than there are Democrats and independents, but you really have to communicate the message about what conservatism is. And what it is, it's a more efficient government, a government that spends your tax dollars as carefully as you watch over your own money, a government that cares about the individual freedoms in giving each person, whether it's a student in education or a small business owner in doing whatever trade or craft they want to do, giving them the opportunity, taking the burdens of government off of them and letting them succeed. When our founders came to this country, they didn't come here and sign up for welfare or any other government assistance program. They came here knowing that they had to work hard so that they would be rewarded for their effort. And that message resonates. I did it, I'm sorry.
I don't know why, but you can't turn it on and off. It sounds like we're being attacked. I'm going to give them each 2 minutes to wrap it up. We started with Jeremy. So this time we'll start with Ray. Why should we vote for you, Ray?
Again, I have a lifelong experience of living and actually going through many different experiences. And that kind of knowledge can only be obtained by life experience. I'm also very knowledgeable on a whole variety of issues. I'm a conservative. My mother was a Democrat, my father was a Republican. So I am tolerant, and it's sad that you have to, family problems over politics, because everyone should be American. That's the other thing I noticed too. You walk around, American flags, you know who they are in the neighborhoods? They're all Republicans. Right. So I want to carry the future of not only you all who are here tonight, who cared enough to come out and listen to us speak tonight, but also for your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren. We need to leave them a future that is just as good, if not better, than what we have today. And you don't do that by selling out today's problems by causing problems for the future. So conservative, values, character, experience, knowledge, and I'm a nice guy, so vote for me.